If you've ever looked up in the sky and seen something up there you could not explain, there is a very good chance our guest tonight may have heard about it. Stanton Friedman was a respected nuclear physicist for a number of top-notch companies, including General Electric and Westinghouse, when his career took a fascinating turn. In 1970, he gave up the corporate world to dedicate himself to the scientific investigation of unidentified flying objects. He has been a respected voice in the field of UFOs ever since then, giving talks and lectures around the world, publishing scholarly papers and books. In other words, in the world of UFOlogy, experts don't get any bigger than Stanton Friedman, and after a long career, he's decided to retire this year. We are very happy to welcome Stanton Friedman to our studios in Fredericton tonight. Thanks so much for joining us, Stanton.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
You've already worked, by my calculations, about 20 years past pension age. Why have you decided to retire now?
Well, I gave my first lecture 50 years ago, and frankly, I'm tired. I'm getting old, traveling around. I've lectured in all 50 states, 10 provinces, 19 other countries. I've seen the world. Be a ufologist. See the world.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm tired.
Tired.
Time
to have a rest. Were you interested in UFOs even when you were a kid, when you were a boy? Is this something that's always interested you?
No. I read my first book when I was 22, I think, 23.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, I was working on nuclear airplanes, pretty far out stuff. And then I worked on fission rockets and fusion rockets and things like that. So it sort of goes with the territory of what's going on. And I worked under security for 14 years. And so I've been to 20 archives. I have an unusual background, but the security and the high tech, worked on fission nuclear rockets this big, power level 1,000 megawatts, half the power of Grand Coulee Dam, like this.
Incredible.
So the technology fascinated me, and then I found I enjoyed speaking, enjoyed traveling, and I found that people were curious. I always get plenty of questions. I've only had 11 hecklers and over 700 lectures. I've written 6 books. My time has come.
Yeah. I'd say you've earned a rest for sure. I read today that you prefer the term flying saucer over UFO. Is that right? And why is that?
Well, yeah, I do, because UFOs covers all kinds of stuff, and I come on very strong. I'm not saying UFOs are real. I'm saying flying saucers are real.
Yeah.
Earth is being visited by intelligently controlled extraterrestrial spacecraft. There's a cosmic Watergate. We're dealing with the biggest story of the millennium. And there are no good objections to that. So I come on strong. I'm talking about flying saucers, alien spacecraft zipping around in the atmosphere of our planet. I'm not saying I know where they come from or why they're here, why they don't talk to me. That's a different question.
Governments rarely admit that this is going on. They never admit that this is going on.
Well, some of the best data is government data, but you'd never know about it from them.
Right. So
one of the biggest studies ever done, the thing that got me hooked on flying saucers, Project Blue Book Special Report 14.
Right.
Covers 3,201 sightings. Work was done under Air Force contract by Battelle Memorial Institute. They put out a totally misleading, dare I say lying, press release. They said even the unknown 3% could have been identified as conventional phenomena or illusions.
So why
if more complete observational data had been available.
Why do governments...
Well, the fact of the matter is the unknowns are 21.5%, not 3%. And they were completely separate from the ones listed as not enough data. They said, on the basis of this study, we believe no objects such as those properly described as flying saucers have overflown the United States. Even the unknown 3% could have been identified as conventional phenomena or illusions. They lied, and I don't like being lied to.
Probably
working under security, you learn to be careful, tread carefully, and so forth. but flat out lying, I disapprove.
Probably
So
the
I spent
most.
the last 50 years proving that the government was lying.
I want to talk to you about Roswell, because that was probably the most famous case that you were involved in and continue to be involved in, because you're going back again this summer, aren't you?
I'm the original civilian investigator of the Roswell incident.
Right.
Just by accident, I was talking to somebody else about a sighting he'd had back in 1970, in the mid-70s. And he told me about a sighting his mother had had. I talked to his mother. She was working at a radio station in Albuquerque. Their affiliate in Roswell had a report out that a saucer had crashed and it was being sent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Yeah. And she was told to put it on the wire to the reporter in Roswell, put it on the wire, on the phone to Albuquerque, because they didn't have, in Roswell, they didn't have a connection to the wire. She started to do that, and the transmission was interrupted. Do not continue this transmission. What should I do? She says, I'm totally surprised. Stop talking. And so the story went out. It made headlines for 3 hours. Army captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. 3 hours later, sorry, it was just a weather balloon. But it wasn't just a weather balloon.
Want to ask you
I
about
spent an awful lot of time since that 1970s encounter.
Sure.
Talking to witnesses. The first person I talked to was the intelligence officer at the Roswell Army Airfield, which was unique. It was the most elite military group in the United States. They had dropped the bombs, the atomic bombs, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and 2 more in Operation Crossroads. Nobody else had access to nuclear weapons. When the man I talked to was the intelligence officer, Major Jesse Marcel. I've since talked to more than 60 other witnesses. Other people have gotten into the act. There's no question that a saucer crash was recovered with bodies, and we were lied to.
I wanted to ask you about Shag Harbor around here. Are you convinced an object crashed in Shag Harbor in October of 1967?
Oh, Shag Harbor.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been down to Shag Harbor.
Right.
And it's a good case. There were a lot of witnesses, and the RCMP was on the scene because they thought it was a plane crash right away. And the witnesses were young. I've talked to some of the witnesses. I think some are still alive. The Roswell witnesses are all gone, unfortunately. Not surprising.
Do you think we, as a planet, should do more to welcome these aliens if they're coming to visit us anyway? Should we be somehow putting out signals to them to come this way? Or do you worry that maybe they might not be friendly?
Well, I don't think welcoming is quite the word. If the aliens wanted to destroy us, they would have done that a long time ago. If the governments would stop lying about what's going on, and it's not just the United States government or the Canadian government, many other governments have also lied. I guess they perceive it as a threat. I mean, after all, we might be expected to act as if we and all the other governments are part of planet Earth instead of being nationalistically oriented. We're kind of a primitive society whose major activity is tribal warfare. Military budget this year is $1 trillion on planet Earth. Surely there are better things we can do than threaten each other.
Want to ask
there are
you,
plenty of kids.
I just wanted to ask you how you plan to spend your retirement, Stanton.
Well, I might have some fun. Read a lot of books, maybe do a little traveling, see what my wife wants to do instead of my doings taking precedence. You know, I don't know that I'll write another book. I've written 6 already.
Yeah.
But life is still interesting. But it's nice not to have pressures.
Glad to hear it, and thanks so much for joining us tonight. Stanton Friedman, one of the world's foremost experts on flying saucers and a longtime resident of Fredericton. After decades of research, lectures, books, papers, and public appearances, he's slowly calling it a career, and we thank him for joining us tonight.